have your cake and eat it too.
You may.
Let them eat cake.
Okay, so that brings us to K, public comments, and we are at 6:51. At this time, members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding a matter of public interest not appearing on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Governing Board per Ed Code 35145.5 and Government Code 54954.3. No action may be taken on comments of off-agenda items unless specifically authorized by law. In order to address the Board of Trustees, the Speaker has the option of completing and submitting a blue card to the Board's recording secretary prior to the start of open session. Speakers wishing to address the Board of Trustees after the first public comments section of the agenda will have the opportunity to do so during any other public communications to the Board of Trustees later in the meeting. If the Speaker wishes to address the Board of Trustees on an item on the agenda, time will be provided at the commencement of that item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Per Board Bylaw 9323, the Speaker will address the President from the podium when speaking to the Board of Trustees. All right. Clerk Clayton Tarbin, do we have any speakers this evening?
We do. The first speaker is John Briscoe.
I'm here tonight to inform and then invoke. If you read the Pledge of Allegiance, there is no comma. One nation, no comma, under God. It's one long sentence. So therefore, there's no pause. I'm going to invoke tonight. If you would bow your heads or prepare yourself as is your custom. God grant us your guidance, your wisdom, and your joy as we deliberate and work on behalf of the residents of our Ocean View School District tonight. Amen.
Next speaker is Emily Anderson. Emily Anderson. Okay. It's a possibility that she thought that she would speak later, but it's actually, she could speak now. So if anyone would like to retrieve her, I'll call the next name. The next name is Naomi Anderson. Okay, here is Emily Anderson.
Good evening, Board. My name is Emily Anderson, and I just wanted to just speak on some of the positivity, the things I've heard tonight. I think it's fantastic that we have so many great employees that have been with the district for so long. I know there's so much often negativity that comes around in meetings, and I just seeing all these long-time employees. I've been around some myself because my daughter's in the district. I've got friends who have had a daughter at Springview and such, and I just think it's such a breath of fresh air hearing all this positivity and these amazing employees, and I just want to further applaud all of them, the bus drivers especially. If you've ever been on a school bus field trip, yikes, that's a big responsibility, and then the younger they go, oh boy. As a pre-service teacher myself, I would hope to, be able to be in a district for so many years and learn around so many great people. And so I just wanted to further just say I think it's been so fantastic. It's seen all this positive stuff that's gone on tonight and all just great things happening in our district. At Starview today, there was an egg drop that the students got to participate in. And some of the younger ones got to see, and if you don't know what an egg drop is, Mr. Guy that was here earlier went up on the roof of the school and dropped eggs that kids had to put in some type of device, and they had to survive the drop and not crack. It was a great exercise. I've done it myself at the California Science Teachers Association conference, and it was just, there's so many great things going on. And I just want to put that out for so many people that might be watching this stream online and such. There's a lot of really good stuff going on in this district. My daughter also goes to Hopeview. My son will be next year, I'm excited to say. And there's a lot of really great learning and a lot of really great teachers in this district. So just wanted people to remember that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Nawi Weitzel Opochli. Okay, we'll save these two cards, possibly. Okay, so for now, that concludes public comments.
Thank you. Okay, we're at L, communications, written communications to the board. Superintendent?
Yes, we have these at the dais if anyone of the public would like to receive a copy of them. We have received 3 since the last board meeting from Chris Epting, from Krishna Maharashi, and Vanessa Nall.
Thank you. L2, board committee reports. Superintendent?
We have none tonight.
L3, trustee communications. Let's start with Patricia Singer.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of the retirees. We are so excited and sad to see you go, but we are very thankful for all of the years of service, and it shows what an amazing district we are to have such amazing staff, and most of them were here for 10 plus years, and that I think speaks really highly about our district, that people want to stay here and they want to work here. So that's exciting to see, and I want to say congratulations to each one of them, and thank you for all of their service and years of commitment to our district. We really, really appreciate it. I attended the Special Olympics at Village View this Friday. It was such a fun event. It was exciting to see all those kiddos out there, special education kids, kiddos in Lakeview. And there was just an amazing group of volunteers putting this event together. It was exciting. Again, there's so many cool things happening in all of our schools, and I'm excited to be able to participate and be able to be part of those things. So it was a great event. It was well planned. It was just touching and sweet to see these babies running around and doing all these different courses. It was beautiful to watch. I also attended the robotics competition at Village. It was a great competitive event. I mean, those kids really get competitive. It was exciting to see. It was challenging, and I really was standing in line for a long time trying to drive one of those robots. It burned. It overheated, so I didn't get to. I was kind of sad about that. But it was exciting to sit and just watch them compete, and it was a great event again. I also was able to attend one of the music concerts at Lakeview last week, where 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders put this amazing concert, and those kids sounded so amazing. And I want to say thank you to their PTO, because they sponsor the music teacher for their TKs all the way to 3rd grade, and those kiddos you can tell that they love music, and you saw a different side of them when they were up on stage, and it was really exciting to watch. So thank you to all the PTOs, PTAs, PTSOs that sponsor music and throughout our districts, because we know that they're an extension of us. There's a lot of programs that couldn't happen. So thank you again to all the PTOs, PTSOs that do that for all of our students. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Trustee Briscoe?
I have just a brief note. The staff that work in our schools at all levels have a profound impact on our children. My son just got married, I'm pleased to say, on June 1st to his Chinese bride from China, where he's going back to on Thursday to live, because that's where he calls home. He invited several principals and instructors that impacted his life, and several of them came to his wedding reception at the Old World. It was just heartwarming, and they were delighted to come up and meet his new bride and congratulate him. These same people, they're all women, came to his high school graduation party and to his Eagle Scout Court of Honor, and his college as well. So thank you to our staff. You're all gone and finished. And in absentia, thank you for your profound impact on my son and the children in our community. It's wonderful. When the child remembers fondly and profoundly that individual, and then when they show up, which is really cool.
Thank you. Trustee Clayton-Tarvin?
I want to say congratulations to our new principal of Marine View, Sarah Shively, and also congratulations to all of the employees, certificated, classified, and administrators who are here this evening to be recognized for their years of dedicated service to our children and to our schools. And, Ocean View is such a special place, and I just thank all of the employees who have given so much of their heart and soul to the kids. It means a lot. As a school employee myself, I know what it means to go to work every day and to feel the connection with the kids and with your colleagues, and it's hard to walk away from that. And so I know that it's bittersweet for many of our employees because it's like a closing of a chapter, but it's opening up a brand new one to getting to do other things like sleep in. So congratulations and thank you again for your service. I want to also congratulate not only our staff, but our students themselves who have obviously improved in their school attendance. And the fact that we were recognized for the State Model for School Attendance Review Board, or SARB, is really a wonderful thing. It is something important, extremely important, because what it does is it keeps the money coming in. Because children that go to school learn, and children that go to school create the ADA, which goes to obviously run the school district. And it's very important, it's an integral part of what it goes on to keep Ocean View School District running. And I want to say that I attended the Hope View Carnival, which is put on by the PTO. It was an excellent event, a wonderful community gathering, and they do such a great job of putting that together every year. And the PTOs around our school district just bring such joy to our children by having these community events. So thank you to the Hope View PTO and teachers and staff as well, and to the Huntington Beach Fire Department who was there to do the golf ball drop. Yeah. So that was great. And that tomorrow there is the History Day event at Springview. Have you ever heard of that? It's amazing. The kids get to dress up and they recreate history. That is going on tomorrow at Springview, I believe, from about 8 in the morning until, I think it's 2 or maybe even 3 in the afternoon. So if you have the chance to go over and see that in action, I think you will be amazed. With that, I will sign off.
Thank you. Trustee Westwell, I do not believe is on the phone, so I'll just go ahead and go. Oh, he is. Trustee Westwell, are you there? No, the light's out. He's not there. So I will just go ahead and go if you want to. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow trustees and say congrats to the retirees. If you are familiar with schools at all, you know that one of the things that impacts student learning the most are the relationships that the students form with the people that are the adults that are at their school, as well as each other, but with the adults mainly at their school. And the fact that we have employees that are in our district for years and years and years and years shows not only their commitment to the district, but that they have formed a relationship with the district and with the school that they're in, most oftentimes. And these students, these are the adults that they interact with day in and day out. And these are the adults that they come back and visit. And these are the adults that motivate them to go on and do well. And they're to be commended again and again and again. And we are losing some fine employees. But we are in good hands because we have other employees who have looked up to those employees as they've done their job and have they've handed off the keys to the kingdom to them. And I am confident that we will continue on the path to success because I know that they're handing down part of that brain trust to the employees that they're leaving behind. And I would say I'm sorry to see them go, and I am sorry to see them go, but on the other hand, I'm also jealous because they are reaching a point in their lives where they get to retire. And like you said, sleeping in sounds pretty good. I would also like to congratulate our principal, Sarah Shively. I know I'm going to say Schneidely one time, sometime soon, because it's School at Rock. I want to say it every time I hear her name. I want to say it with an accent, but I'm not going to. But I do want to congratulate her. She was a phenomenal principal, from what I've heard of parents and teachers, and a phenomenal vice principal. And I think she's done an outstanding job, and I'm glad to see her moving up. Lastly, there have been some questions with regard to public comments in terms of just changes. We're not really making any changes other than just tightening the ship a little bit. When you address the Board of Trustees during public comments, it's appropriate to address the whole board. We act as a board, we act as a single unit, and it's appropriate to address us as a single unit rather than individuals. So it's not so much that we're changing anything, we're just sort of tightening it up a little bit and making sure that we operate as such. And there were some people who had sent me some emails in the last, after the last meeting and said, you know, they had felt that that I cut off some of the speakers. I hadn't cut off any of the speakers. I had just asked them to address the board as a whole, not individuals. They could have kept speaking to the board as a whole, and even have been, if they wanted to criticize board members, just make sure you're addressing the board as a whole and not individual board members. That's per ed code. It actually says it in the public speakers, the new public speaking guidelines that we have out there. So I wanted to clear that up just in case anyone had any questions. If you have any further questions, if I get any further emails, I'll try to address those concerns at future meetings. I'm going to keep it short because we do need to go back into closed session at the end of the meeting. So I will end my comments there and we'll move on to L4, Superintendent's Communication. Superintendent.
Well, good evening. I do want to send my congratulations to all of the retirees and wish you well and thank you for your service. And congratulations to Sarah, our new principal. And I too, like the board members, visited many of our wonderful school sites and all of the different events. And one of the that gone on these last few weeks, and one of the events that I want to share with you is a special demonstration day that we had 11 different school sites. We have been focused on kid-centered authentic literacy. Okay. And authentic literacy talks about how students read, write, speak with purpose using higher order thinking skills across all content areas each day. So we're looking for students to engage their knowledge, to create, to innovate, to infer, and to create projects and be able to demonstrate their learning using their oral speaking skills and presentation skills. And so around the district, we have trained teachers, and they have really embraced this new instructional strategy. And I thought it was important that you saw some of the things that have gone on. So, for example, over here at 5th grade at Village View, Mrs. McGregor's students are creating a 14th colony. They learned about the colonies, and there they go. And I want to show you this little video from Marine View learning about composting.
Thank you. What did you do with the what was composted? Did you put it somewhere?
So basically, there was 2 methods to compost them. So you have to put like a warm blanket around on the top of the compost bin. That way, like it can get moist and like turn into like all the vitamins that the plants need to like grow their food. Or we would add worms for, to the mix and add dirt too. That way, the worms can like go ahead and compost all that.
Very cool.
The compost, we can also turn it into a fun science project. Like, for example, if we're in science class and we all wanted to have a fun project to do, we've got the compost and we can grow carrots, grow tomatoes, grow watermelons.
The project keeps going, right?
Yeah.
It's going, yes. Higher level, fun education. That's what all kids do.
So did you guys enjoy this type of project? What specifically did you like about it?
I just really liked working with new people that I usually wouldn't work with because we didn't get a choice, you know? Yeah, it was really exciting to work with new people and make new friends.
Okay, very cool. Yeah.
So over there at Marine, the students had to come up with a solution to a problem. So this was with all of their trash, composting, and another one came up with a game, trash kickball. So they made trash like hoops out of the trash can so they could score points when they throw away the trash jars and throw away their trash. So over there at Oakview, I was in this classroom, and these students were taking inspiration from nature and applying them to something that would make school better. So they took wings from birds and hollow bones from birds to make flying buses. So it was very interesting. And there we have, this is over at Lakeview, and we had 4th grade students, and they had to research rare animals, and the animals had to create their own website. So it was like a website that the animals would create for themselves. Interesting. And over here at Vista View, you can see the little monument, heroic animals. So they had to create a monument, and this is, I think this is 6th grade in Mrs. Cho's class, a heroic animal monument to justify why and how each animal was heroic. So again, it's justifying, applying, innovating their knowledge and their learning. And Circle View had a variety of different projects. Over there you see the 2nd graders, and they were fascinating. They studied extreme weather, and the students had to create solutions to decrease damage or increase survival rates. 2nd graders, pretty cool. 3rd graders, they're up there too, and they worked in teams to create a survival kit to help
humans if dinosaurs still roamed the earth. So we have got students really thinking outside the box, working with each other and applying their knowledge. It was a fabulous day. We had people from all of our leadership team visit our classrooms, and then everyone ate lunch together, the teachers, the administrators, and the kids. Look at that delicious lunch, that kale salad. We had adult lunches that was prepared by our own food service division. I was at Hopeview, and this was fabulous. We had TK students and second grade students, Miss McLaughlin and TKers, and Miss Smith's second graders. The TKers made a structure first, and then the second graders had to add to it, make it stronger, so it could support a dinosaur rooftop party. So it was quite fun, and you can see them all creating and making those. And it's just to show you the smile on their faces and the wonderful students, and it really shows that there's so much good teaching and learning going on in their schools. I just really felt I needed to show pictures tonight instead of just talk about it. So thanks for indulging me, and thank you to the Ed Services team under the leadership of Mrs. Brentlinger and Director Kathy Tryon and her entire team for bringing this project to life. And we hope to spread this more, because we know that collaborating and critical thinking and problem solving are what our students need to be able to do in the future to be successful, and they're on the right path in the Ocean View School District.
Thank you. All right, we're at L5, PTA, PTO, PTSA, PTSO, President's Roundtable. I don't see a representative here this evening. Do we have one? Okay. We'll move on to L6, Employee Associations Communications, CSEA and OVTA. I think OVTA, no, she left. Oh, yeah, she's here. OVTA, I don't see CSEA. Do we have a rep from CSEA? Will you raise your hand?
Not today.
Okay.
Well, hi, I'm Margaret Friedman. I am the president of the Ocean View Teachers Association. Welcome, trustees and cabinet. And thank you for letting me speak. Anyways, a couple things. I'm excited about the opportunity again for teachers. We are going to be applying for grants, and I'm going to be one of those teachers doing that this year. And that's just another great example of how the community supports our school district, and I really like that. I also want to commend Ed Services for their grit and tireless these last 2 or 3 years of just constantly communicating and moving us forward, and we have some really great steps in place to keep the communication going on a monthly basis and really keep us working together. So under Jody's leadership, it has been absolutely wonderful, and I just commend everything that we've been doing with our PAL work with Felix and Jody and Carol, and being able to and teachers working collaboratively with the principals is really making a difference in our school district. And I look forward to next year. I'm already thinking about all the exciting things that we're going to be doing. And I know that our teachers are going to be enjoying the relaxation, but they're also very excited about starting the new year, next school year too. Thanks.
Thank you. CSEA? Last call? Okay. And that brings us to M1, reports. Measure R, update security measures. Yes. Deputy Superintendent, I believe that's you. Correct? Yes.
Good evening, President Souders, trustees, Superintendent Hanson, and guests. Tonight's presentation is on security system layers. Through the past year, on several of the presentations, the board has addressed security and different options that might be able to put into our program. And I shared at another time I would bring back some information, so tonight's that other time. So in terms of layering security systems, 3 different types of systems, each layered upon one another. The first is a visitor registration system. similar that you would see when you go into a hospital. The second is an emergency mass notification system. This is purely a communication system to notify site of an issue, an intruder, a lockdown, whatever the case may be. The third is security management system, which really gets more into the modernization of dealing with software and hardware. We talked about security locks on doors. This is one of those options. So we'll go through each of those. And at the end, we'll be seeking some direction from the board. So I've shown this slide in the past, talking about the scope, design, and construction, building, and budget. And really the purpose of tonight, as I mentioned, is talking about the scope, where we would like to go, and how the board would like to see us pursue this when we go out into our construction projects. So the first visitor registration system, we sent 2 staff members who have been office managers. That would be Cindy Pulfer and Mr. Aviles. Worley went to Cypress School District, to a school to see this program in place. Several school districts in Orange County use this system. It's designed to inform staff in the office regarding your visitors. It keeps up-to-date data. Databases from all 50 states, and it's current and it's updated on a daily basis. So this is a solution that we could employ in all of our schools to have a consistent safety procedure when you enter our schools. So visitors that come on campus, volunteers, whoever may be coming onto the campus, we would be able to do a background on them. This type of a system on the right-hand side is really comparing to let's say the current paper and pencil where you will sign in. There's no way of screening anybody. This provides instant screening, particularly with registered sex offenders and databases in all 50 states. The databases can be custom for each school district and provide alerts. So if someone were to come in and is on a database, they take their driver's license, ID, they would put it into a reader, and if your name popped up on one of these databases, the school office manager, principal, a screen would pop up saying, we got an issue, it's an alert. So we would be able to address instantly if we've got an issue with someone on our campus coming through the office. The records are accurate, they're maintained in a database, and we can print out any type of file or report that we want based on the information in that. And again, it's efficient reporting because everything would be held easily and quickly for an individual school, or since all the schools in the district could be on this, we could have district reports. So as you come in, as I said, you would you go in the hospital, you put your driver's license ID into a reader, and it would print out a sticker badge that you would put on your lapel or your chest, and you would know exactly what you're there for, whether you're a contractor or you're a volunteer. And so we could have it color-coded. If you're a volunteer, it's one color, a visitor a different color. If you're coming to the classroom, we can have them different color codes so that you would be able to identify what's the purpose of that individual on the campus. The second system is emergency management mass notification system. We shared this when we talked about when we purchased our telephone system. This was the next component of that. And it's a notification system that integrates with our current telephone system that can launch an alert within seconds to everyone on the school site. And it doesn't matter what type of system. So it's a single point of access. We designed in our modernization program, in each of the classrooms will be a speaker and a digital clock. If there is I'm just going to use this because it's apropos with what's going on in society. I would say that it's a lockdown. The clock would change and it would scroll lockdown. So instantly it would show up on that digital display, on a smartboard, on your computer, teachers' desktops. It would say lockdown. We would have an instant in our announcements, speakers. We would be announcing a lockdown. So all of these different aspects can be applied by a simple touch of the application through the software program. In here, the features, there's a single point of activation. It could use multi-modality channels. So whether you're, indoor, outdoor speakers, marquees, telephones, beacons, devices, as I said, scrolling, live updates, we'd be able to know right away. So it would eliminate confusion because it's in real time. And it would provide access to our staff. So in the front office, teachers would have access on their cell phones. They would have access on the telephone system. If they saw something from their classroom, they can access it through the telephone system or through their cell phone if you were out on the field. So it provides instantaneous communication. And again, this is a communication system. The third is security management, and this is where it's really integrating the discussions that we've had in the past about our hardware blocking systems, our video surveillance. We currently have video surveillance at Lake and at Oak, and they have provided some very clear, real information that law enforcement has been able to utilize in the apprehension of some violators on our premises. It'll also be set up for first responders, emails to key administrators, and it integrates with the surveillance system that could even go to first responders. The benefits of physical access to the control, we've talked about that before, is hardware, meaning the doors would be automatically, pressing the button, the doors would lock. So it provides us that security piece. And we would integrate that with our security fencing that we've already had board approved to design, since we have a single point of entry into the school, be able to lock down the perimeter of the school as well by using that on the gates. Again, this integrates Vanderbilt Enterprises, this particular company that we've been working with, provides the software programming portion that would deliver the control through the hardware as well as video surveillance. Allergon and Schleek provides the hardware components, so it's a smart lock stack. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more complex than the current locks that we have on doors. And Time Alarm, who we currently work with at Lake and Oak, they would provide the installation and service. So we're looking at video integration, alarm monitoring, and the hardware for doors. So this security system is currently being used. You can see the K-12 school districts on the left-hand side, local districts, Huntington Beach City School District, Irvine Unified School District, Norwalk, La Mirada. On the right-hand side are higher ed, Cypress College, Irvine Valley, Cal State Long Beach. This is something that educational entities are looking at in terms of providing as maximum security that we can on our campuses. So when we talk about LADER's system, the visitor registration system, there's a one-time setup in the beginning here. It's the software, obviously, and then there's the card readers and there's the touch screens that we would put in every office. So our visitors, whoever volunteers coming on the campus, would just use the touch screen, put their ID card in, and print out the label ID. One-time setup, second year on would be $8,600 a year. That's primarily just the upkeep on the software. And that we currently have budgeted in our modernization. The second, the emergency mass notification system, the communication system that works within our telephone system. Again, there's a one-time setup, $68,000, and then years 2 on be $22,000 for the upkeep district-wide. Again, that is also budgeted in our modernization program. The last system, the security management system, that would vary in cost depending on the scope of the design. We could, there are really 2 options going from 180-degree difference. One option, you do school-wide. Obviously, that's going to be much more expensive. That then has an impact on a, say, modernization budget. The other would be a little more limited scope, but combining that with the security fencing that we've already approved that we're going to move forward with and design the schools to have a single point of entry through the front office, we can limit the scope to be the administration building and the gates, fencing gates on the perimeter of school in terms of control, and obviously that would be a much less expensive path to go. So what we're looking from the board is seeking your some insight and direction in terms of do we pursue the first two that we already have budget for, and the third is what type of direction would we go in terms of the scope? Should we want to go with this type of security hardware video surveillance?
Just as a quick note for those in the gallery and the board, we just went to the city quarterly meeting, and this is a topic that is a hot button issue, and they all have opinions on this and are already taking action. So this is not something that is, a maybe. Most districts have implemented this or are already implementing many of these things, as you can see from the people here. So we'll take questions. Mr. Briscoe and then Trustee Clayton.
Dr. Conroy, does any member of the public from any place, anywhere, anytime, have a right to enter a campus at their beck and call and will?
In a general statement during the school week, I'd say no.
Really? Okay. The answer is yes. Anytime, any place, anywhere. They can walk on campus. We can set rules that they need to check into the office. We can send an escort with them. They can go anywhere they want on the campus. They cannot go into a classroom, a locker room, a teaching space. But they can go anywhere else. Walk around the campus, wander around. We would be able to advise not to have them accompany. So with that in mind, and I would appreciate the superintendent double checking my information unless she wants to agree on the spot. Am I right or wrong?
You've informed me that there is code that allows that. I have not researched it. I just take your word for it. But we do have policies about visitors, and we do accompany visitors and ask them to sign in and so forth.
So where that leads me, Dr. Conroy, is if we have some intractable... Oh, by the way, I did a search where my son went to school for the registered sex offenders in the neighborhood where that little school is, and it's a treasured school in our district, was red with dots all over. There's all kinds of sex offenders in that neighborhood, meaning that likely there's parents. So if we have a parent that comes up as a registered sex offender, what does it mean? Or a volunteer?
A parent, as I understand it, a parent, even though they are a registered sex offender, do have the right to go to their child's classroom. But we would have someone escort them and monitor them. But they do have that right.
The classrooms are sacrosanct. Classrooms are not an entry point for anybody. The fact is, a parent can go into the classroom. You haven't heard me say anything about the classroom entry or place of instruction entry. I'm just talking about access to the campus. So if they come on and they come up, and by the way, there is some privacy to registered sex offender information promulgation, as I recall. It used to be you could look at the list, but you couldn't tell anybody what you saw there. Is that still the case? Do you know?
I don't know.
This whole situation is fraught with conflicting objectives. I'd rather have none of those people on my school campuses as a trustee up here. I don't believe we have as much latitude to preclude people as we might think. I'd like everybody on my campus to have a badge, whatever their background and experience. We know who's on the campus. I'd like to retain identification on the site and then at our office, at our district office, of who is coming onto our campuses. So as we go through and quickly scan a driver's license and whatever other ID the person has. Oh, by the way, you don't have to show an ID as a member of the public to ask to walk around Hopeview Elementary School campus. You simply say, I live, breathe, and I'm a human being. I'd like to look at the campus. I'm not going to go into a classroom or a bathroom or a locker room or an instructional area. And we don't even have to know who they are. Do we have a rule in our district that you have to show who you are into the campus?
I'm not sure. I would check on that, but as a former site principal, I would have serious issues with someone just walking on the campus and going anywhere they want at their beck and call, as you stated.
I guess you need to talk to the state legislature. I'd like you to look into those matters for us, if you would. I think it's a bad idea for anybody to walk on the campus, although they can right now. As a side note, I take no respect for the little school district you listed here, HBCSD, that refuses to fence and secure their campuses. I've invested the time to go to their meetings to encourage them to listen to their parents who want their campuses fenced, locked, and secured with single ingress and egress. So Anyway, those are things that I'm concerned about. We should have answers for those on what this means. I'd like to see everybody on campus wearing that. But if you don't have to identify yourself, and I don't know that there's statute that says you have to identify yourself to enter campus, what it would mean. That's all.
Trustee Faintar.
Trustee Briscoe, you and I often agree. I'm going to have to disagree with you. And I'm going to read to you some information from the Los Angeles Unified School District that is based upon the California Education Code. Schools welcome parent and community involvement, and schools are often centers for the surrounding community. However, the main purpose of schools is providing an education to students. Under the law, schools are not considered open to the public or a public forum, such as a public park or sidewalk. Instead, schools are considered a limited public forum and may limit public access in accordance with reasonable regulations set by the school. Under federal and state laws, parents have a number of rights with regard to their children's education. For example, Education Code Section 51101A1 and 2 give parents and legal guardians the right to a classroom observation or a teacher conference within a reasonable time of request, and schools should consider the reasonableness standard in reviewing and adopting visitors' policies. The policies can clarify items such as sign-in procedures, classroom observation requests, and authorization to access to different areas on campus, and it goes on and on. My point in stating this is that actually Ed Code does not claim that there's carte blanche access to public schools during the school day. They are not considered public forums unless we're having a public event such as school opening during the school day. We've dealt with that actually in the Ocean View School District when we had some visitors come to witness the Lakeview opening and then subsequently disrupted. And because it was a public event, they were allowed to do what they were doing at the time. I considered it a disruption. However, it was seen as not disruption by HVPD. The point is that when a school campus is closed, which our school campuses are, even without the fencing, the public is not permitted to come onto the school campus as they see fit. So if you deem fit to look into that, superintendent or deputy superintendent, that would be okay, but I would venture to say that actually the Ed Code is contradictory to what Trustee Briscoe has explained. However, I could be incorrect. Now, one of the things that I do want to agree with Trustee Briscoe on is his interpretation of what's going on at the HV City School District. I've been working with some parents over there to make sure that what's going on with their modernization with Measure Q is going as smoothly as ours. I have to give our staff credit in our construction management. The Ocean View School District, we're at the top of the game in modernization. I have to tell you, this is the place that you want to mirror and that you want to look to see the right way to do it. And I want to commend Dr. Conroy and his staff for doing business the best possible way. In the HB City School District, they are considering using the one system that you had mentioned, Dr. Conroy. I don't think they have agreed to do that yet, but I hear it's on it's a consideration right now for the whole district. However, there is some still major, I guess, pushback on the school district to fence in the entire school district. Now, getting back to Ocean View, that is not our problem. We are obviously being proactive in the fencing solutions, and we are going to be doing that for the safety of our students. And again, thank you to my colleagues actually on the board who agreed with me at the time that that was something we needed to do. Okay, you know, I was thinking about the system where the stickers get printed out. Many of us have visited a hospital. Many of us have been to the Mission Hospital does it, and Mission Viejo, Chalk, if you've been to Chalk, which many of us have because we have children. You have to check in, you show them your ID, they print out the sticker, you put it on and you wear it, and you are identified as such, and they put you through that screening process. I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you, Dr. Conroy, for looking into that. It's a great idea. And all the other ideas as well, so I'm in support of the visitor registration system, absolutely. Emergency mass notification system, absolutely. And the number 3, security management systems, depending on what the costs are and things like that, which I know you'll be getting to us.
One thing that I did want to, and I'll close with this, is kind of bring to my colleagues' attention. There has been considerable brought to me that some parents are asking for several items, or asking if we're going to use these items on our campuses. One is bulletproof glass, and I know that I have talked to the deputy superintendent about that and about the different types of glass and different coverings and coatings and things like that, in case there would be an active shooter or some other kind of incident. Even an earthquake could prevent glass from shattering in on kids. And another is having a built into, or at the school entrance, if we're having a single entrance situation, having metal detectors in the door frame or near it, which is actually something that's common in many schools in Southern California. I would be supportive of those measures to be able to safeguard our children, as long as they are, obviously not intrusive in any way. And that's really what I have to say for now. Thank you.
Trustee Singer, do you have any comments or questions? Okay. Trustee Briscoe?
Yeah, we can set up reasonable rules, but it's not clear to me from what you read, Trustee Clinton Tarvin, that you have to provide an ID to exercise your right to walk around and make sure the campus maintenance, lawns are being maintained, whatever reasons they want to come on campus. So I don't know that we have that happen very often. The other question I do have is if somebody wants to walk on campus and they are a registered sex offender, I believe there's laws in place that still protect dissemination of that information, which is something we need to check into. And what do we do? And they don't want to go into a classroom. The classroom is not on the issue. They're coming on the campus or at the front desk, and up pops a registered sex offender or some other heinous crime. What do we do? What does it mean? And I don't know the answers to those, and that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so I have questions with regards to the systems. So the visitor registration system, you say that it is linked to a number of different databases that are updated on a regular basis. Do you guys have any idea of how long it takes to perform a search when a person were to give you their name or show their ID?
In my understanding, it's within seconds. Once you put your ID into the scanner, shortly thereafter, it gets printed out if your name is not identified on the database.
Okay, and do you know if it is linked with law enforcement databases?
I believe there's a potential for it to be linked. I don't know for sure.
Okay, and with regards to sex offenders and on the sex offender registry, this isn't necessarily dissemination of information about a sex offender. This would be just whoever's checking the person and looking at the screen, sex offender pops up, they go, okay. Then they can, if we have policies in place as to whether or not they can go on campus or not go on campus, then we could employ those policies. At least they're aware that there is an incident.
Correct.
And that's what I see as the strength of the system.
Correct. It's identification, so it alerts that we have a potential issue, and that's when the site principal would get involved.
Absolutely. I would like to know whether or not people are required to show. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that they wouldn't be required to show ID to go to campus, but I would like to know if that's a requirement or not. So they would get false name.
That is part of our board policy.
Okay, and that seems like they said a reasonable
Right.
expectation. So
And we also have board policy how to deal with sex offenders, because there is always the possibility that you could have a family member, a legal guardian, that is registered as a sex offender, that you stick their ID in and they come up, and there is policy on how we deal with that.
Absolutely, okay. And then the emergency mass notification system, and I think this is a great idea, and I'm in support of it. I know that Huntington Beach Union School District has recently started using a system that does just these things that you're talking about here. And one of the things that they're able to do, if they want to, is they're able to send out information to parents. Yes. Notifications, one-way notifications, not so they're flooded with a bunch of text back. Right. One-way notifications, and the parents need to register for that system before it can send them. And notifications, as we were discussing, how do you get buy-in from parents? And they were saying most parents, they have like 90% buy-in because most parents want to know. So my suggestion would be to look at the system that they're using. It may already be the same system, but a lot of our students, all of our students, most of our students go on to the Huntington Beach High School District. And I would imagine that the company has something in place that would allow them to seamlessly continue to receive information
If I may, President Souders,
Sure.
because I was at the meeting and heard about the program, I did discuss that with Mr. Conroy. I think the program we're looking at is much more comprehensive.
Okay.
That is an app which is useful,
Sure.
but that is only used at certain schools. This would be a district-wide program that wouldn't just go on cell phones, but would alert through a variety of sources. So this is a much more comprehensive, and I believe that there is a component within this system that is similar to what we learned about from the high school district.
All right, and then what I would suggest then is that you maybe communicate with the high school district as to what we're using and see if they wanted to do something similar.
I'm familiar with the Titan system. When we were at CSBA, I sat in on the table talk with the person who invented it.
Yeah.
It does some of the things that our system does, and it doesn't do others. Most systems, they're all going to do basically the same kind of platform that all school districts use. This would come off the database that we use. And right now, we're looking to do this district-wide. Huntington Beach Union High School District, I believe, is doing it at only 2 schools, Edison, and I think the other one is Marina.
Okay.
So,
And then another question on number 2, and I suppose actually number 1 as well. The $44,000 and $68,000, is that per site or is that district-wide?
district-wide.
And for those of you in the gallery and the board as well, I'm in support of this, and I'm actually quite shocked that the cost is, I know that seems like a lot of money, but for every single one of our schools to get this double coverage, to me, that seems very reasonable, considering the amount of money that other things in the district cost, it seems actually. And since safety was one of it's one of the reasons we were able to even pass the bond, because that was one of our primary concerns. So I'm actually in support of all these. I would like to see what the scope would look like on number 3. Trustee Singer?
I'm also in support of it. I think this is a great thing, and I think in order to keep our kids safe, we have to do these kind of things. So I'm really excited to see this. I do have a question on the 8,640, the 2+ years. Is that on a 1-point entry for the district, or is that
It's district-wide.
district-wide? Okay.
Trustee Clayton?
I just want to make sure for anyone that's in the audience or that's watching through the video feed, thank you to our community member who's providing that. I do want to make it very clear that what the superintendent had said, we do have very stringent policy about volunteers being on campus or those coming onto campus and registered sex offenders, and even beyond as far as looking at criminal records and so forth. And our assistant superintendent of human resources, Felix Avila, is very versed in this and maybe even able to tell us what that means. But I just want the public to understand that Ocean View School District does not make a practice and absolutely does not. Okay, I think it was, there's some kind of understanding or sex offenders allowed on campus. I don't know. Okay, that's not what's happening in the Ocean View School District. We have a very strict screening process for volunteers to be able to know. But if state law allows for a certain person to be on campus because they are a parent or a guardian of a child, there are certain situations where a sex offender may be allowed on campus because of state law. I may disagree with that, but it's a law in California. But I want you to know that the Ocean View School District takes great steps to be able to protect our children and to not have them subjected to a criminal element of any kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so do you want a poll of the board to find out where we are?
From your discussions, I think I've heard that everybody's in support of numbers 1 and 2.
I'm in support of all 3. I just like to see more of the scope.
So regarding the scope, as I mentioned earlier, 2 ways of looking at it. We're going out to bid for Westmont. We're putting the final addendums for the Westmont bid package, which will be due at the end of this month and coming to the board, I believe, in July. We can bid the whole scope and see what the cost is and pare it down, or we can go with just a limited scope It's whatever the board's pleasure would be. To give you a rough idea, if we were to bid the entire, this is an estimate, it could come in higher, way higher, could come in lower. It's based upon the number of doors, obviously the cost, with more doors will decrease just because of volume, but you still will have a large expense, so it could be anywhere from $185,000 to $200,000 to do the whole campus. Now realizing Westmont is different than college. College is a single building, you have less doors, so the cost would be a little bit different. The cost of, say, just doing the administration building at Westmont and the fencing may be somewhere around $45,000, $50,000. We can bid the whole project and we can scale down, and that would be a choice the board would make when we bring the bids forward to the board to say, you know what, we'd rather do this scope versus that scope in the context of the whole bid, so that we're doing it in a more of a holistic approach in terms of what the cost would be with all the other bid trades rather than just making a decision right now. So that is one option.
So you think that the people entering the bids would be willing to show us different levels of scope?
We could ask that.
Okay. Trustee Garcia.
Was any work done to speak to Long Beach Unified for proximity reader, complete controlled access, and complete staff and student identification?
No, we did not talk to Long Beach Unified.
Did we talk to anybody about complete identification of all people on campus?
Well, currently we know who our students are. 2, I believe all of our staff currently have ID badges. The issue is whether or not they wear them or not. So I think we have a pretty good idea of who belongs and who doesn't in terms of staff and students. This just provides us with the better opportunities of exactly who is on campus and who's not.
So I would, as I said before, I'd like to see what it looks like to have complete knowledge of who's on campus with badges and proximity readers, so we know from the single ingress egress points who's coming and going off of our campus.
Can I just make a comment, President Souders?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, as we go out and look at bidding these modernization projects, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and Dr. Conroy and his team is bringing forward to the board their recommendations of what safety measures they believe are the most appropriate for our district. And at this time, there's 3 before you. I've heard tonight some talk about metal detectors at the opening, what you refer to as bulletproof glass. Those are not things that we are considering at this time. Those are not our recommendations at this time. So we need to know if that is a strong direction of the board, because that will impact the total cost of the project and what future items we bring forward to you. So, you know, we have to make decisions, I think kind of like, without doing my research, kind of like what Huntington Beach City is doing, is they believe, it sounds like, that this lockdown system would be sufficient as opposed to fencing. So, you know, we're looking at a combination of fencing and some of the time and alarm systems to accompany that. And we feel that that's sufficient at this time. But some of those other features, again, you talk about the scope and design, as Dr. Conroy does in every presentation, we have to weigh that out. So right now, these are our recommendations. If there's other things you need us to consider, we need to know these, and this is the opportunity to do that. So when we bring forward future items, we can share the different provide you choices, because there's, as you know, there's only so much amount of money that we can put forward into each project, or if we continue to add and add and add to our first school, by the time we get to our last school, you know, that could be concerning. So we have to keep that in mind, and I feel that Dr. Conroy is doing a really good job of monitoring that.
Trustee Craig, do you have a comment?
Yeah. I heard the word sufficient. I think I know what you meant by that. But when you're a parent of children in the Ocean View School District, sufficient may not be good enough. And I don't mean any disrespect, but what can we do that's the best?
we feel that what we're presenting here
Is the best?
is the best.
Okay.
To understand, and I'm just going to use the topic of bulletproof glass.
Okay.
The next thing is then you need to have bulletproof doors. Then you're going to have bulletproof walls. In any building that's not, concrete, steel reinforced, we're just layering on top of cost to what ends. And we're getting to the point where we're just reinforcing the shell and we're not going to do any modernization at all. So as Dr. Hansen said, that's why I've showed that first slide, the scope, design, and constructability with budget. We're going to present to you the Westmont bid package. We're looking at making sure that we upgrade the glass windows for glazing for security purposes as well. It's just another layer of campus. We're looking at the HVAC system. We're looking at using biometric NASA design space technology to help the infrastructure of buildings in terms of the environment. All these do come as a cost. And when we go out to bid, we're going to show all these costs, and we have what the budget we set, and it may come in over budget, and we're going to ask you, as you'd asked before, what decision, when did the board get to make decisions? This will be the opportunity for the board to make decisions. We want to scale that down. We don't want to do this. We'll do that, but not this. We'll stay within the budget, or if the board approves, add a little bit more to the budget. These are things that will come out in the bid package that we'll present to the board. We're just looking for some direction to help with that bid package with these three items in addition to the things that we've already done.
Okay, so I understand that. I am only one person that talked about bulletproof glass, but I had talked to you, Dr. Conroy, about there's different levels of that, right? Okay, the rest of the board has not weighed in on their desire to look into it or not. It's just my thought. The other is about metal detectors. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that as well. So these are things that I brought up because this is a public meeting to be able to do it. You can tell me if you think it would be more appropriate another time, but I think it would be, I think it's now really because we don't really want to hold up the process.
If it's the board's desire to add metal detection within the door frame, this would be the appropriate time to say, put it in the bid package. Because once we go out to bid, anything after that, it's going to be a change order and it's going to be expensive.
Trustee Singer.
I think this is a great layer, and I think this, for me, this is great. I mean, to be able to know who's on campus, to have a badge to identify, it's something that we currently, yes, we have a visitor login, you go to the office, but let's face it, there are people that don't check in. I'm at sites all the time at Lake, and there are a lot of people that I'll see, I'm like, you don't have your pads, you gotta go back. So for me, this is really good. This is a great start. Within our budget, I think this is doable, and I think this is a great start. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing the cost of considering metal detectors just to see it and see if it's something that's outrageous and that could we even do it. I think without numbers, I don't know, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing one with metal and one without and see the difference.
We can put it in the bid package as an alternate, and you'll see what the cost is.
Right, I think that way we can make an educated decision based on numbers. Is this something within our budget that we can work with?
And just to be clear, we're talking one door in the administration.
Yes, just one door.
Trustee Risker.
I don't have a great deal of interest in earthquake or bulletproof glass anywhere, nor do I have a high interest in the metal detector, but I do have a high interest in people detectors and having people who belong on campus badged and having a system to know who's on campus and a rigorous site expectation that all people will be badged, either with a temporary badge with a code on it that can be read or with a permanent badge which they're required to bring. And they do that in other school districts, Long Beach Unified to my best knowledge. So if nobody else on the board is interested in having a fully secured and locked down campus that way, then so be it. But I've said this before, and I think that's something I'd like to see the pricing of. We have sensors, proximity readers that can read the badge from 5 and 10 feet away, I believe.
I believe if we, here's in the board, if we make it if we implement the policy that we have, that every employee who comes in is hired by the district gets an ID badge that they have to wear it and be visible, I think that starts the part of identifying whether you're an employee or not. The visitor registration system, by using that, and the only when we have our fencing, have a single point of entry, the only way they should be able to get into the campus is through the front office, and the only way they should be able to get on the campus is through the system, and they would have a badge, and it would be identified by whatever color code system that we have in terms of the groups of employee or visitors that we have on our campus, but then identify who is not an employee coming on our campus, and then the students, for the most part, I believe we know who our students are, and unless we're going to start ID badging our students, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend.
Okay, so
why is it you wouldn't necessarily recommend? That's the first time I've heard you say that.
For the purpose of doing what? We're going to start IDing and having individual badges for TK and kindergarten students running around the campus and expecting them to be carrying that and having that identified. They probably lose it within the first week.
If we did research, we could find out what the school districts have done to answer those. At this point in time, it's just speculation.
That is.
We tried that in Long Beach Unified School District, and we ran into those same problems. I mean, you have 8th graders that don't come to school with pencils, so the fact that they're going to bring their ID badges is, and there's some that bring them and have them, and they work well, but you're constantly having to, if you have a single point of ingress, you're constantly having to stop children, print new badges or print backup badges, and it becomes a little bit time consuming. But I think if you have that single point of ingress and fencing, you're limiting access, and you're handing out if you have a badge system like this one, you're handing out the badges as people come in. So anyone you see on campus who's an adult that doesn't have a badge, you immediately know that's an issue, and you can contact someone else.
I think with the systems that we have in place now, with the employee ID badges, with the fencing that we're going to put in, with these 3 layers, I think once we get it implemented, I think we're going to start to notice that we have a lot of control. And maybe at the point down the road when we notice that this system is not meeting our needs, we can address another layer.
Can I ask a question of time? What are we looking at in here in terms of time for the bids? Do we have time to go out and do research on metal detectors and bulletproof windows? Or
not really?
Do we want to? So we need to get these bids in right away, or
the bids? We have our last addendum that is going to all of the trades on Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday. The bids are due, I believe, on June 26th. Which then we do our due diligence and the background checking and whatnot, and then we would bring the bid package to the board. I believe it would be the July board meeting, the July board meeting. Which then we have the whole comprehensive, like we showed the last time, all the bidders, all the categories, and then we start going through an exercise and picking what options do we want, which ones we don't, to try to stay within our defined budget.
And what is your professional opinion on including at this date a separate category for metal detectors and bulletproof glass?
I would have to defer and ask Chris Meyer if it's even feasible in terms of the knowledge base and the research, whether we have that available. If there's or realizing that we've got tomorrow to do the research because they're putting together the addendums on Thursdays to distribute them on Friday.
Okay.
So if you would like to ask Chris,
well, maybe that would answer some of the board members' questions who have concerns with regards to the metal detectors and bulletproof glass.
Metal detectors, as far as I've not seen them in a door frame, I've seen metal detectors as a unit that's set inside of the door frame, so it's something that could be added later. One of the concerns that I would have about metal detectors is it's kind of like the boy that cried wolf. As kids come in and false alarms go, pretty soon you don't even pay attention to them. That would be my concern. Also, the other concern that I have is, like Dr. Conroy said, as far as using your money wisely, it's no matter what you do, if someone's bound and determined to cause bedlam in that school, they're going to be able to do it. The purpose of these security measures are really to provide some control and alert as far as if something bad does happen. As far as getting back to your question on the metal detectors, I personally would recommend against them. One, for cost. Two, because, and I'm talking about in this bid, if at a later date you decide to install metal detectors, I think you're fine. You could still do that, but it wouldn't hamper our current bid. I think it would confuse the bidders at this point. As far as bulletproof glass goes, it's very expensive. I don't think your budget's going to support it. I agree with Dr. Conroy and what he said on, you've got a lot of wood frame buildings, bullets go right through there, they go through the doors. Where do you stop? The other thing about metal detectors is someone's bound and determined to bring a gun on campus. Even though you have 8-foot fences around, what's to stop you from throwing something over the fence, in the morning and then going picking it up on the playground? There's no way you can make it. It isn't like an airport where you've got constant surveillance and long distances between buildings. Your sites are relatively, even though they're spacious, relatively tight. So I would be concerned about that. I just don't think they'd be effective. My opinion.
Okay. Trustee Clayton-Tarvin?
So I'm glad to hear you say, though, that if we're going to consider metal detectors, that we can do it at a later date. Here's something else metal detectors are. It's called a deterrent.
Yes.
And they are something that are used at airports for a reason. And depending on what the strength you set them at or whatever, there's all different permutations. So I'm in disagreement with you.
Okay.
And but I'm glad to hear you say that we can come back and look at it later. So thank you for letting us know about that, and I guess we'll have to move forward with what we have here so that we don't throw off the bid process. So I support that.
One thing I wanted to add, Dr. Conner asked me to speak on item 3 as far as depending on the scope. The current scope that we're contemplating is electronic locks at the points of entry around the campus and to the admin building. As far as costs go, the cost that Dr. Conroy gave you would be the cost for when he was talking 185 to 200,000. That would be all the door hardware and everything necessary for all the classrooms, the admin, and that. What wasn't mentioned was there would also be a credit from the standard hardware that would be used on those doors. So that wouldn't be a total added cost. The cost would be somewhat less than that, and depending on the school and the number of doors.
Quick question on that. I noted about the automatic doors. Would they be lockable from the office from a central location?
From numerous locations.
So a principal out seeing someone on campus could find one of the locations, or even from their phone, lock it down and just cause all the doors to lock instantly.
Right, and Keith Sem from Time and Alarm is here as well, and he is very much of an expert on this security system, and can talk to you about.
Can we bring him up?
Yeah.
Yeah, the system can be activated through an app. It can be activated through a push button on the wall. It can be activated from a special card. And then with that, once all the doors lock down, nobody would be able to get in. You can still exit out. By the fire code, it has to provide means of exiting out the building in case of fire. So all the lock sets are allowed to exit back out of the rooms. Law enforcement would then have the ability to override with a special card. So if law enforcement first responders come on site, they would be able to override and go by class basis and clear it. And also the systems interface with other systems for overhead announcements, email notification, automatic first responder notification, redundancy with cell backup in case you lose network or lose power, battery backup, all those kind of things are integrated into it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So I guess, board, we need some direction. Do you want to? I'm comfortable going ahead with the plan. I feel that our staff is professional enough to propose something that's doable and that they consider to be safe for our students. That's my personal opinion, but I'd like to hear from each of the board members what your direction is. So, Trustee Singer.
I agree. I think the current plan is great, and I would move forward the way it is.
And just clarifying, when we talk about moving forward, is in number 3, are we talking then full scope?
Yes.
Trustee Pinehurst.
I'll concur with one caveat that we be able to come back later and look at anything that might be possible as far as metal detectors or anything else that doesn't, so that we don't have to upset this process, but that can be looked at later. And then I agree on 3 at full scope as well.
All right, agreement as well. Trustee Briscoe?
Yeah, it's okay. We need to have answers, real answers from legal authority on what it means to know if somebody's a sex offender. Just because you have a board policy doesn't mean it's a legal board policy and correct policy. And in the longer term, the questions that you asked Dr. Conroy, so why do we want to know if little kids are supposed to be there or not? Which is a valid question. I'd like to know what other districts have said to that. And Trustee Souders has said that his district, or his school, is unable to enforce compliance with proximity reading devices. Maybe it's just name badges, I don't know. So those are all things we haven't explored. We're just conjecturing and making stuff up, except for Trustee Souders' personal experience in his school. I'd like to know more about it, and we can always add proximity readers later, because we're going to have one ingress, egress, we're going to have fenced campuses, which is a good thing. So I'm in support of it. I'm not big on glass, earthquake, or bulletproof glass. I'm not big on the metal detectors particularly, but we can look at it.
Thank you. Thank you. You have direction, correct?
I do.
Okay. All right, we're on end consent calendar. We need a motion
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, so just as a reminder, we need to make a roll call vote on this, as we are going to with the rest of the agendized items. So let's go down the line here. Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Hayden-Darvin?
Aye, but with a point of order.
Yes.
We don't have the member on the phone anymore. Is he there?
No, he's not.
So we're making a roll call vote for people that are in attendance?
Yes. And the record will reflect that he is not in attendance.
Okay.
Okay.
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I am aye as well, and Trustee Westwell is not present. So the motion carries 4-0 with Trustee Westwell absent. And that brings us to new business. Old business, there is none. And that brings us to P, new business. P1, Superintendent's Office, appointment of representative to serve on the Huntington Beach Community Services Commission. This is kind of a snap for action. What we're going to need is a motion to elect, I make a motion to nominate people. So when you make the motion, you have to say, I move that we nominate such and such person. And I believe the names that we have down are Mr. Mark Bixby, Trustee John Briscoe, and memory serves community member Stephanie Seavers Green.
Yes.
Okay.
I will move to nominate 2 community members. Trustee John Briscoe and community member Stephanie Seavers Green.
I will second that nomination. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
All right. You have the floor.
I'd just like to note for the public that for the past year, we have not had a representative on the Community Services Commission due to the fact that the nominees that we put forward last time to the City Council were rejected, in my opinion, in violation to their own city code. And I hope that this time the City Council will take into consideration that the Ocean View School District Board of Trustees has the legal authority to put forward names of those that we deem fit to be able to be on that commission. And in fact, their own city ordinance and code says that they shall appoint one of the 2 that we put forward. So I hope that they can see fit to finally approve one of our nominees to represent our school district. So we haven't had one. We haven't had a representative. The Ocean View School school district has been under or unrepresented for the past year because the city council decided to vote in opposition to the two people that we put forward last time for political purposes, and it's truly unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor? Oh wait, I'm sorry, can't do it. We got a roll call vote. We're gonna get used to this, I swear. We'll go down the road. Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Darvin?
Aye.
I myself am aye. Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries 4-0 with Trustee Westwell absent. We are on P2, Superintendent's Office consideration of a date change of a regular scheduled board meeting from June 26 to 2018 to June 21st. Is in front of us tonight for action. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
And it's open for discussion. And I will start us off just to let the public know the reason for this change was because of some scheduling conflicts by some of the board members. We were not going to have a quorum, and by changing the date, it allows us to have the maximum number of board members present, so that we can continue on with governance in the most fairly represented way. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those, Singer, Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Darvin?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I too am aye. Motion carries 4-0. Trustee Westwell absent. P3, Superintendent's Office Resolution Number 261718, remuneration for Trustee Norm Westwell, June 21st, 2018 Board of Trustees meeting is before us tonight for action. Is there a motion? I will move this forward.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Trustee Clayton-Darvin or Trustee Briscoe?
I raise my hand.
That is true. Trustee Briscoe did raise his hand. He should speak first.
All right, Trustee Briscoe, go ahead.
Remuneration is an SAT test word and a big one.
That's a good one. Trustee Clayton-Darvin.
It means you're going to get paid for not being here. Trustee Westwell is obviously out of the country, and he had planned that trip and had believed that we were going to be having our board meeting on June 26th, but because of the fact that we won't be able to do that, and we're moving it to the 21st, is not his own fault, and therefore I believe we should remunerate him. I would encourage my colleagues to do that and vote aye this evening.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Darvin?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I myself vote aye. Motion carries 4-0. Trustee Westwell absent. P4, Educational Services, Ocean View School District Local Control and Accountability Plan, otherwise known as the LCAP, is before us tonight for information. This Assistant Superintendent Bretlinger, I'm assuming that's your game. Get to know your jobs
Yes,
now.
correct. So this is the 6th year that school districts across the state are implementing their local control and accountability plans. And just as Dr. Hansen said, it takes a team here to do the work, and I was so pleased to see the student demonstrations as an example of that team approach, including educational services leaders. And as Margaret Friedman mentioned, also in collaboration and communication with our teachers and also with our classified staff and principals. And really what our LCAP is designed to do is really to support that laser-like focus on student achievement for all students. In the development and implementation of the LCAP is a team approach that also includes many of the district departments as well. So it's not just an educational divisions document. So the LCAP is retaining its 5 required components. There's an executive summary, an annual update, stakeholder engagement. I thought it would be insightful to share. We held 16 stakeholder engagement sessions over the course of this year. Our goals and action steps are aligned intentionally to the Ocean View Strategic Plan, as well as our thematic goal. And our demonstration of increased and improved services identifies action steps that are specific to targeting learning outcomes for students in identified subgroups. So our executive summary, it tells the Ocean View story, as you can see in the handout, highlights Ocean View's LCAP's actions and services, and reviews performance. And specifically, our greatest progress continues to be that of our English learners, Overall, we have high academic performance as indicated by green on the California School Dashboard. And specific performance gaps are students with disabilities in the area of English language arts and our homeless students in the area of mathematics. We talked about increased or improved services, and then a budget summary that's included as well. So some highlights of our 2018-19 LCAP action steps is that strategic and intentional focus on student learning that Dr. Hansen started out with our students actually demonstrating that they're learning, using literacy as the focus through all content areas, that authentic literacy. Also foundational skills and interventions. All of our teachers by this Friday will have been trained in foundational skills, universal and diagnostic screeners, and then have materials in which to strategically and intensively address the deficit areas. We're continuing to build capacity with our professional learning by engaging in training of interest-based stakeholder engagement so we can truly have that two-way communication. And also training school and district advisory councils is in our plan this year for building capacity. Engaging parents, we want to enhance our communication structures for parents, and that would be the training through those advisory councils so we could get that two-way communication and engagement. Strengthening school and classroom climates would be increasing our school safety drills, another component of what was discussed earlier by Dr. Conroy, as well as the development of a social emotional learning continuum so that we can truly look at our kids' social, emotional, and mental needs. And then finally, stay the course with our innovative programs, sustaining those, launching new ones as well. So our next steps are to conduct a public hearing by June 30th. We can now change that date to June 21st now that we've changed the board meeting to seek board approval. Then July 1st through August 30th comes for the full implementation of implementing those action steps. In August, we will receive our state assessments, have them disaggregated, to then do a report to the board in September, and then in November start the stakeholder engagement process all over again. So with that, that concludes the brief report.
Trustee Risco?
If you use legal-sized paper with the County of Orange, you get charged extra.
You're extra special tonight, Mr. Briscoe.
Always.
Okay, under the executive summary, you list homeless students. Federal government lists people who live in their car, live in a motel hotel, live in an illegal garage conversion, and most important, live doubled up in an apartment or a single-family home where there's two families in one home. Those are all homeless people. So when you say homeless students, what exactly do you mean? The self-disclosed homelessness on our forms that parents don't adequately fill out? U.S. Census Bureau homelessness, what's that come from?
We use the McKinney-Vento forms that we are required by law to send out to our families. And we use those, and over the last couple of years, we've actually seen an increase in our self-notification of that information.
With the reasonable assertion that reasonable assertion from my research that 90% of the households living around Oakview, the most densely populated land in the County of Orange, are doubled up or tripled up into 3-bedroom units, meaning that half of Oakview is essentially homeless by federal standard for definition. Do you have any idea what percent of McKinney, whatever that Vento disclosure our rate is there? Is it 50% or is it more like 20 and 25?
I don't have that specific. I could get them for you.
I'm going to assert we need to do a much better job having families correctly self-disclose which one of them is homeless so we can get money, because there's money attached to that, and we can better serve. Because what happens, you get 2 mommies, 2 daddies, and 5 to 10 children living in a 600 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. There's no access to computers, there's no access to, there's just a whole lot of problems that flow out of that, and we can't address that until we know the correct number of homeless students on that form. Just my opinion. I think you'll agree. The next page says active foundational skills.
My opinion is, and the research says, if we don't get it right in first, second, and third grade, then we're playing catch up for the rest of their academic life. And so what are we doing to absolutely make sure our 3 R's are correctly and well done in first, second, and third grade?
So what we are implementing effective in the
Am
fall.
I wrong when I've asserted?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's actually by the end of first grade. It's called the Matthew effect, that if our kids do not have solid foundational skills, their reading comprehension will suffer through the remainder of their schooling. So effective the beginning of next year, all of our students will be assessed using a universal screener. And we are going to be providing 5 subtests so that we can truly identify deficit areas where students are struggling in the area of reading. So it starts as early as TKK with letter, name recognition, sounds, segmentation, going to phonics fluency, and then assessing comprehension by retelling. So we are expanding our assessments to a universal screener that all students will be assessed 3 times a year. Then what we are working on is identifying the strategic interventions that are currently in the Wonders program, that once we've identified that deficit area, we can pull those resources. And then also in the LCAP under 1.1, we'll be purchasing an additional resource kit. It's called WonderWorks, that will then provide materials for intensive interventions for our students. So that will address our foundational skills for next year.
That's great. We have to get the first, and who's the other one? Kamala Harris, our beloved senator. She did research, and I have the report that says every minute of school a student misses has a measurable impact on their performance. Not hours and days missed, but every minute, meaning lateness and tardiness both to class and lateness to arrival at school. Is there anything in, that's the only thing of merit that I know that she's done for my state, but is there anything in this that addresses that assertion, the research that I believe is correct?
Yes, so under action step 4.3, it's actually in the bigger document, will be our social emotional learning continuum, and really looking at addressing students who are not coming to school or who are coming to school late and trying to get at the root of that. Tonight you also heard about the recognition of our Ocean View SAR process, and just continuing to reinforce those efforts as well.
We had discussion on our board about the timing for the state testing, and one of our trustees asserted that even an 80-minute period is not sufficient for most students, and in fact there really is a proscription on timing the state assessment testing anyway. So are we working towards expanding the testing windows so we can get the best read of what our students are doing?
I believe we have a pretty open window that it comes across usually being pushed later to the time period so that teachers feel that they've had adequate time to prepare their students with the content before the test. So haven't really heard much about the window, and especially because with the computer you can stop and take breaks and then move on to another test.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it should be noted as well, the presentation by superintendent as far as the layered learning approach, not just oral communication, written communication, but that type of layered learning approach also encourages kids to read because they're reading for more of a purpose than just, we're going to learn our ABCs.
A couple things. The McKinney-Vento Act, and so one of the things we need to be aware of is that when parents do register their students online, which is what we do now, which I think is great, thank you for making that happen, because we were doing otherwise before, but one of the questions that is asked is, are you homeless? But I don't believe it gives you, like, what is homeless, okay? Okay, so that's a major problem. The other thing that I have learned about certain communities that I have close ties with, one of them being the Oakview community, but there's multiple communities, is that some of the parents do not have access to the registration online, so they come to the school and there's like a like a meeting, and some of the community members come in and they help, that are bilingual, come in and help or explain what's going on, and that there is hesitation in the community to want to say, yes, I am homeless, because in reality, culturally, because you're living with another family in many cultures doesn't mean you're homeless. But under federal designation in the McKinney-Vento Act, if you're living doubled or tripled up, whether it's in a 5-bedroom home or a 1-bedroom apartment, you are considered homeless. And that we have to get past the stigma of saying or checking that box, because in reality it brings in the funding to be able to resource to our students, from anything from buying backpacks for kids or pencils and pens. It's really something we need to get across to our families. A couple years ago, I made a presentation, actually, and I want to thank Miss Lee, because she helped me with it. I made a presentation to the city of Huntington Beach from the Ocean View School District on the McKinney-Vento Act to their homeless task force. They had no idea that school districts were able to access funds, and they didn't realize that these categories actually are labeled as homeless, like, obviously living in your car or not having a home, living, under a freeway pass. Those are all things we obviously know, but living doubled or tripled up is truly considered under McKinney-Vento Act is homeless. So I would encourage our staff to work with our communities that are not familiar with those, to be able to sit down when it's time to register their children and say, it's okay to check that button. Actually, you're going to help us, not that we're going to help you. If you turn the language around, it helps. You're going to help us. Please help us by checking that box. Help us to get what we need in the Ocean View School District. Now, I think another thing that I wanted to mention was Trustee Briscoe had just talked about testing. Trustee Briscoe and I have talked about testing before, so I think he's referencing me. We have talked about the fact that the state law requires that all CASP tests, SBAC tests, to be untimed. They are untimed. There is no time limit. So when students sit down to take their tests, if they're doing it at middle school, let's say, for instance, where there's less flexibility due to the periods and the bells ringing. My son, for instance, is at Mesa View, and he's in 7th grade, and he said, I said, well, how'd the test go? Oh, fine, I finished it in the hour or whatever I was given. And I said, wait a minute, whoa, back it up. You finished that in an hour. Not good. As a teacher, I can tell you, no. Because my students sit for 2 and 3 hours, and they're in the 6th grade. But I teach a self-contained classroom where I can have them sit for 2 and 3 hours if they want to get up and have a break or something. But if there's a bell ringing and the student has to pass, the student has broken their thought process, or they're rushing, because you know how kids are, they want to rush to get it done, right? And our scores will suffer. They are suffering because the kids are not understanding that they can either do a pause and they come back the next day. But what I would say, this obviously would come from your department, Ms. Bretlinger, is that we encourage our school sites, and in particular our middle school sites, to go to block schedules. That's what I did when I taught junior high. We did block schedules to do STAR tests. And you have kids sitting there for 2 and a half, even 3 hours at a time, and you only go to period 1, 3, and 5 one day, and you go to 2, 4, 6 the next. And kids can sit and take their time, just take their time and not rush. This is how you get optimal, the best, the highest scores. And this is what we should want to strive for. So if you could look into that and make it, I'm not sure how we deal with it here, but just look into it. Thank you.
Any questions for thank you, Ms. Bedlinger. Move on to P5, Educational Services Public Hearing on the Ocean View School District 2017-2020 Local Control and Accountability Plan. We are going to open it up for the public hearing. Open up the public hearing at 8:30 for 1 minute, starting right now.
Get it to the gallery.
Okay, we're closing the public hearing and we're moving on to P6, Administrative Services. Preliminary 2018 to 2019 budget is in front of us tonight for information. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's Deputy Superintendent Conroy again. You all have your draft budget packets. Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening again. So tonight is a review of the draft preliminary budget for the budget adoption, which you will be approving the next board meeting. So again, just reviewing the annual budget cycle, kind of we're at the end. We are here. This is the draft budget. As Ms. Brentlinger shared, she presented the preliminary draft LCAP. This will be the budget of what you will adopt in the next meeting. The components of tonight, we'll talk about budget information, assumptions, revenue, expenses, our fund balance, and encroachment to the general fund budget. So, as you heard, Ms. Brentlinger discussed the LCAP and the LCFF, the Local Control Funding Formula, were all developed by the legislature at the same time. In January, the governor proposed increasing the LCFF by $2.9 billion, and the intent was to fully fund the LCFF 2 years ahead of schedule. And may revised, additional monies were put into the LCFF above the January level. And what was important in that, Governor Brown took additional monies and put it to the base grant and increased the COLA, statutory COLA, which was established, set at 2.71, which in essence increased it to 3%. So that was a good thing for education. Some of the assumptions we're looking at, as I mentioned, the COLA is updated to 3%. The target for the LCFF is at 100%. Our unduplicated count, those are the students that Ms. Brinklinger discussed what the LCAP is for. We're at 49.03%. We've increased our numbers, but they're not increased enough to get the concentration dollars. We have to be at 55% or higher to get those extra bucks. When we look in our recent history from 2013-14 to 2017-18, in that time span, our ADA has declined by 1,228 ADA, so it's significant. We're projecting to decline 18-19 our ADA by 189 ADA. Other issues that we've talked about in the past have been the additional retirement contribution that districts have to contribute to for STIRS and PERS retirements. We have the annual step and column increases by nature of moving from 1 year to the next. In essence, as Summer shared, you get a year more experience, you get another year of dollars. But that's the system we work under. The governor at the time was proposing some one-time discretionary monies, but we did not budget them in this budget because at the time of the May revise, the governor was proposing to budget the monies and give it to districts in July of 2019. Which really does us no good, and by that time there would be a new governor, and who the heck would know if we even got those dollars this time, so we did not budget it. And then we know, just on the norm, for this is an impact for employees, health and welfare costs annually increase by cost of doing business. And so just those are other issues that we keep in mind when we do our budgets. Talked about ADA enrollment. This is comparing our ADA, our enrollment to our ADA. The top line, the blue line, is our enrollment. And you can see from 13-14 to the current 18-19 projection, we're on a steady decline, but we are starting to see projections where it's going to start bottoming out. And the corresponding line there is our P2, is our ADA, and you can see it's a corresponding reduction that aligns with our decrease in enrollment. We budget our ADA at 97%, and for the last 3 years, our ADA has been 96.9, 96.7, 96.6. So we're fractions of a percentage point from hitting our target. The one kind of blip there you can see is the 14-15 year, this part right here, a little blip there in the ADA, but that corresponds to with that year. Now, I show this slide as I talk about bottoming out. The blue line is the K-3 ADA or the enrollment projections from 13-14 to 18-19. You can kind of see it starts to flatten out. And we're projecting to see in K-3 slight increases in the next 2 years. On the other side is the 7-8, and you can see 7-8 has pretty much been a flat line up until 17-18 this year. Next year we're projecting that to go down. And it continues to decrease. It's interesting when we look at our enrollment numbers over the last several years. I believe it's this year is the last year of an 8th grade class that exceeds 1,000 students. And so as we're projecting forward, the 8th grade classes will be the 900s. And so you can see here, as you lose 8th graders and you gain a little bit in the K-3, that's where it's going to start to shift in enrollment. The positive part about this, just from a purely financial perspective, is that we get less dollars for 7th and 8th graders and we get more for K-3. So that side is a positive as you look to the future. So our key budget assumptions, the statutory COLAs, as I mentioned, 3%. That was the added dollars from the governor. The next 2 years, 2.5, so there's a decrease dropping down in COLA, and then 2.67 in 2021. Again, the LCFF is 100% fully funded, and this is that slide. The one that we always talk about is the employer rates for STRS and PERS. For the 18-19. The STRS increases by 1.85% each year until 2021, where the increase is half of that. PERS isn't quite as structured as the STRS, but again, in 18-19, it increases by 2.5% over the prior year, and then in each of the next 2 years, it increases by 2.7%. So that is additional cost each year built upon the other. So, we pay an increase in 18-19, another increase in 19-20, another increase in 2021. So every year we're increasing, and I'll show you those dollar amounts. The one-time discretionary, the May revise was talking about providing the one-time monies, but not at the level of what was presented in January. So what the discussion was, it's going to be about half as much as what the governor projected. This is an estimate of $150 per ADA, but again, we did not budget it because of the uncertainty of whether or not we'll actually get them, whether they're actually budgeting the current year, because the legislature does have their eyes on those dollars, looking for their categorical grant programs in education. So budget. So this is our this is the cost of opening doors just to do business. So I mentioned Step and Colin. This is that annual. We just move from one year to the next. You get your experience. You get either might get a step move over, or you might get a column advancement and a step advancement. But it does impact the district general fund. So you can see it's around $700,000 per year, and that is for all employees. Certificated, classified, and confidential. The next two, CalPERS and CalSTRS, that's the retirement contribution that the district is required to contribute. And when you look at those amounts, we're looking at in 18, 19, 19, 20, over $1 million each year, just to address the increases in salaries. That increases the PERS and STRS, the district's contribution. Now, I must say also, employees are bearing an increase as well. Next year for certificated, I know it's 10.2%, which is greater than it was last year and greater than what it used to be at 8.5%. So employees are also bearing some of this ourselves, but not to the tune of the millions. In 2021, the reason that there's a drop down is because of the STRS. The increase is half the amount it was in prior years. So when we look at the total increases, when we add the column, here's the total increase on this line here. Total cost increases, $1.5 million. Just open the doors. We don't have to do anything, and that's coming out of our funding. So when you look at this line right here, second from the bottom, the new monies. In 18-19, we're expecting to get $2.4 million of new revenue from the LCFF. But when you take out that $1.8 million, we really only net seen $580,000. That's a far cry from $2.4 million. The big hit is going to be in 1920. The cost of SEPA column and the PERS and STRS increase is almost $1.9 million, but our new money in 1920 over the prior year is only $289,000. So it's actually a reduction of funding for us of $1.5 million. And then in 2021, we see an uptick in our LCFF revenues of almost $1.8 million, but we're only realizing an additional $244,000 in new money. So, we've got these. You open the door, here's the ongoing costs that we have to adjust, and what's the net impact? The net impact for 18-19, an additional $580,000 over 17-18. 19-20, it's costing us. And then in 2021, $250,000 sounds like a whole lot on its surface, but when you compare it, that we're talking about revenues of $72 million, it's not a whole lot. What kind of budget does. So here's the numbers. We can see the increases. So here's our big increase in 18-19 from 68 million to 70 million. Here's that small increase in revenues, $78.6 million to $70.9 million. There's only $240 million increase. And then we see an uptick in 2021 of the LCFF revenues. Now, why the changes? We go back to the COLA. We get an uptick in 18-19 up to 3%, then we drop down in 19-20 to 2.5. We got declining enrollment. We get a small uptick in COLA for the next year, so it all starts to have an impact. And when you look at that projection we have of increasing K3 and decreasing in 7th and 8th grade, we're getting more money for the younger kids as the older kids are going out. So that all starts to compound. So we look at our general fund revenues. 82% of all the monies we get is from the LCFF revenue. We get 7% local, 7% from the state, and 5% from the federal. And that equals our total revenue of $6.7 million for the 18-19 school year. When we look at our salaries, again, we start with certificated, and you'll see that the differences here in 17-18 to our estimated actuals to our 18-19 from 41.1 million to 39.1 million. Well, that's our early retirement incentive in its first year, taking effect and helping there. Our classified salaries, we see a small uptick in the salaries of about $35,000. Most of our classified employees are positions that had to be replaced, but we're replacing them at lower salaries, so there's a savings there. And then we have the corresponding impact in the employee benefits. So when we look at our general fund expenses, our certificated labor costs is 45%, classified as 18%, and benefits is 24%, for a total of 87% of our total unrestricted general fund is on salaries and benefits. And when we look at just our unrestricted labor costs, 89%, actually goes up a little bit. And that's important to understand that we really live in the unrestricted part of the budget, and almost 90% of that is for people. We're a people business, but the rest of what we have to do out in the district for our facilities, for maintenance, for the grounds, and the upkeep of that comes from that last 10%. So we look at our general fund reserve fund balance. Here we get, we have our 86.7% or $86.7 million of revenues. 86.6 million in expenses, gives us a surplus, $71,000. So that $71,000 is added to our beginning fund balance. I'll take any positive number there as I can. And so when you add those together, we have an ending fund balance in 18-19 at $8.1 million, and that's 9.4% reserve. That includes our 3%. So we got a fairly healthy bottom line. So whatever our ending fund balance is in 1 year becomes beginning fund balance in the next year, and unfortunately we're projecting a deficit. But again, there was that big drop there. The second year, we're going to go back to opening the door. The net increase in total dollars was only $244,000. So we have a deficit in between our expenses and revenues. So this $1.1 million is reduces our beginning fund balance down to $6.9 million, and our total reserve balance is 9.7%. And then we see a reduction in the deficit last year, and we end up with a 7.1%. 7.9, yes. So when we look at contributions to district programs that can't fully support themselves, special education, we can see we're spending $10 million. Part of that is because the federal government doesn't fully support special education in public schools as to what limit they can. As a matter of fact, the federal government has never, although they have in the legislation at the federal level to spend up to 40% of special education for public education. In California, they've never funded over 17%. So you can see why that creates a problem for us. Routine restricted maintenance is primarily our maintenance staff. Home to school transportation continues to encroach. We're projecting $1.9 million. As we look in terms of how we save money and address the general fund budget, at some point in the future, that will be a conversation we might want to address in terms of how transportation is impacting the general fund. And then we have special education transportation, which we are required to by any student as an IEP, and that's part of that process. So those are our encroachments. So we look at the challenges. We've talked about our structural deficit. We know that there's really no good budget without an adequate reserve, and we are working toward that resolution. When we look at our budget and your nice little book there, and you look at the total unappropriated dollars in our budget, it's all positive. So that's a good thing. And with those reserve amounts that are 9 and almost 8%, those are positive, and we're working to continue to build upon that. Future funding, the annual growth in the LCFF funding is only going to be determined by two pieces now. The ADA, changing your ADA up or down, which is a reflection of your enrollment, and then the statutory COLA. Those are the only increases that we can foresee in our future funding. Because the LCFF, the way the legislature had written it, is once it's fully funded, the only mechanism will be the COLA to increase the funding base, and then it's adjusted by your ADA, and that's every district's issue that to deal with. So that's the third bullet. We continue to encroach on the unrestricted general fund. As I mentioned before, the required STRS and PERS increases, there was no funding stream to support that. And school districts and education advocates are talking more and more in Sacramento about the impact it's having on district budgets. And until a school district goes negative and can point to that being the primary reason, we're not going to see much traction in Sacramento. And then finally, because of the full funding of the LCFF was not adjusted to address the STRS and PERS required increases, our purchasing power is not and has not been fully restored. And that concludes my report.
All right, Trustee Briscoe, questions from the board? You have the floor.
On the general fund expenditures page, books and supplies was $5.5 million, 17-18. That drops to 3.5 thereafter. What is the $2 million difference?
Well, this year we did have a textbook adoption.
Well, that's it.
It's about $1.5 million.
So the other question I have is we keep boo-boo-booing about declining enrollment. but I haven't heard anything from you about what percent of children that live here we do enroll. Traditionally, Westminster enrolls 80% of the kids that live in their district, age 5 to 14. We enroll 75, Fountain Valley 70, Huntington Beach City 59%, and Newport Mesa, the poster child of no interest in their schools, 45% of the kids go to their schools, 55% flee somewhere else. What is our current enrollment, percent of enrollment?
In terms of who resides in our district?
There's 12,500 children that live in our district boundaries, age 5 to 14. We enroll, whatever the number is, it's going down.
I don't have that information.
Would it be possible for you to obtain that for us?
We can try.
It's from the demographic report. It's a simple 2-figure calculation, preferably for middle school and elementary. You understand what I'm asking?
Well, I understand. It's not a focus of when we're developing budget, though, but I understand your question.
Well, it does if we want to know what we do to fix the ADA. In fact, if we've gone down below 75% enrollment, something's not working right. And we want to look at our programs and things that we offer. You do reference, or we did reference tonight, the Golden View new programs and so on and so forth that we're doing to attract families. But the proof is in the pudding. If the overall population in our district is going down from 12,500 to 12,000 to 11,500, as we decline, then that would be a logical progression leading us to a standard. We're stuck at 75% enrollment, but if we're down to 70% enrollment, then that would be a concern that we would all want to know about.
So the amount or the percentage of enrollment is not. Okay, let me back up. Declining enrollment does not affect may not affect the enrollment percentage. We could still be enrolled at 75% of our kids are going to our schools. It's just the number are lower. That's because people are not having children or because they can't afford to live here or whatever. Everybody in California practically is in declining enrollment. Some of our neighbors have severe declining enrollment, worse than what we actually have. But I recall, and I know Trustee Briscoe and I were sitting on the board together at that time. I think it was maybe in 13. We had a special board meeting on demographics, if you recall. We went through the fine-tooth comb, and I may even have still the presentation. Yes, and we looked at grade level numbers specifically, who's in kinder, how many kids in first, how many in over certain years, and then it gave us the sort of, so I know we have it somewhere here, and maybe that's something we could look at for another time, maybe when we get to, what is it, item Q, when we suggest, letter R. Maybe that's something we could look at a later date, but yeah, I don't think the two it's just a thought. I'm interested in it too, actually, just to see what our enrollment is. Ours is higher than our neighbor to the south of us, HB City District, I know that. But it's less than our neighbors to the east of us in Westminster School District. They enroll more of their own population, so less of their students go to parochial or private schools than do ours in Ocean View. Anyway, so for homeschool, yeah. Okay, other than that, so it's not as dismal as we thought. Is that what you're saying?
I'm pleased with the budget.
Oh, well, great, because the last presentation we had it was a little gloom and doom.
Well, you have to realize that it's always evolving, and it is very politically charged. And so whatever the governor, depending on the governor and the governor's perspective of public education and how they fund it, we're very fortunate to have a Democratic governor who looks at the budget for education as Republican and puts money into education. The issue is with the LCFF, was the mechanism to address the loss of funding that school districts faced in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But we were being benchmarked back to a time in 7, 8, so 15 years later, we're looking at, well, it's not 15 years, 10 years later, we're being told we're being fully funded to what level we were 10 years ago. Well, I don't find that to be fully funded, but we've lost purchasing power. And I have to give credit to Governor Brown that he's helped education move forward. This is a good budget, and he's put monies in to help education. I could make recommendations for him how you want to do with the one time, but it's what we have, and it's better than what we had prior, and it's a new funding system. And right now, for this year, for 18-19, this is a very good budget.
Thank you.
Okay, so the reserves really are kind of what's saving us. We're dipping into them, but we still have a reserve. All through all those years, even the low years, we're still at a 7.9% reserve, which is basically keeping us afloat, correct?
Correct.
Right, and the ADA is a trend, as one of the trustees mentioned, that is statewide, and I think to a certain extent, well, mostly statewide, let's stick to the state. We see with declining ADA statewide in most places, but it also is something that cycles, correct? To where we are now at a down time, and we can expect to level off, and then perhaps someday in the golden years again, arise one more time.
We will rise one day.
Okay. Okay, so it's not dismal. I had the same. Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, and again, we look at our enrollment figures in the prior years. We follow the cohorts from year to year, and we use that cohort history to project where we're going to be. And we can see that in the 8th grade, we can see that the 8th graders the last 10 years were over 1,000, and we're seeing that trend going away. What we're really focusing on now is the K-3 to see that we're continuing to do that. We've got a traditional kindergarten program that's very solid, and we're looking to continue building on those classes because that's a way to keep the kids in school. When we have, I think when we get college and Westmont modernized and we move the preschool programs there, I think it's going to take some time to enhance that. But I think a preschool program on a comprehensive elementary school is such a sound concept of starting your preschool program and an educational preschool program to kindergarten into your elementary school. I think will have huge dividends in our community to enhance enrollment. In the TK, when we have the early kindergarten program in January, we're doing some innovative things in terms of enrollment, and if we continue to do that, we hope to see that the K-3 enrollments continue to increase. We're projecting them to, and if they do that, then we're going to start to see that hitting the bottom of the decline.
Okay.
But it does not address the issue that Trustee Briscoe has been talking about.
Right. Trustee Clayton-Tarver?
One quick question. I'm not sure if we heard about this, but are we looking to go for another state preschool? I hope. Are we going to look at more of that sort of preschool program and to acquire another?
See the assistant superintendent.
I remember hearing about that. Didn't we hear about that in a prior meeting?
Ms. Brettlinger?
Yes, we hope to expand our state preschool program.
Great. So that brings in more students in a quality program that then matriculate into kindergarten. Excellent. Thank you.
Trustee Briscoe?
I heard something interesting, Dr. Conroy, to me. We had a cohort study about 6 years ago. I think that's what Trustee Clayton-Tarver may be thinking about, where we didn't just look at the big general numbers I've shared with you repeatedly on the general numbers of OVSD versus Westminster and so on, but we looked at the actual retention in the cohort by class as it moved through the school site. And what we found was pre-K and kindergarten had robust numbers. First grade, okay, and then it dropped off. It's a reflection of interest by parents, I guess, to go to homeschool, private school, or parochial, but also reflects on site leadership. So parents don't like the principaling in the site or other things, and they take their kids elsewhere. So the cohort, I heard you say cohort study. Do you have a cohort study you can share with us?
I have a spreadsheet that shows the cohort, and actually the change in the cohort over the past years has been TK kindergarten to first grade, and there's a time frame in there where a number of years from kindergarten to first grade dropped anywhere from 175 to 200 enrollment in a year.
Are you talking about by site or just in aggregate?
Aggregate.
The site part leads to assessments of what's going on at the site. Do you have anything? That site number cohort retention is very important because if it hollows out, it could be an instructor issue or oftentimes a site principal issue. Do you have anything looking at the sites and the That, what you described is for budgeting. This other one by site can also be for administrative leadership and review.
Well, we do break it down annually for staffing purposes. It would just be a matter of accumulating all that data. We have it somewhere, and just whether or not we accumulate it into a single document, I'm not sure. I don't have that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. I don't feel so bad. And Christian. That brings us to P7, Administrative Services, Public Hearing for the preliminary budget we just heard. We're going to open it up for 1 minute at 9:01. I'll wait for Trustee Clayton-Tarvin, our clerk extraordinaire, to get the timer out. Let me know. Ready? We're opening it now.
President Souders?
Yes.
Can I just interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
I'm just going to hand the mic over to Dr. Conroy for a minute.
Okay.
I was remiss earlier not acknowledging Keith Farrell, who's the Director of Fiscal Services, who he does the bulk of all this analysis stuff, and I wanted to recognize him because he's done an outstanding job, and he's finishing his first year as Director.
Point of order, point of information.
Yes.
I think you should open the public hearing back up, and Mr. Farrell should come to the mic and tell us about it. I'm joking. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. We appreciate your work.
Okay, that concludes the public. He's like, I do numbers, I don't. That concludes our public hearing. I already put the gavel. P8, Administrative Services Acceptance of Apparent Bid Results and Award Contracts for various categories for the interim housing project as proposed tonight for action. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
And I will second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent.
I'd like to share that the total of this is about $3.2 million. It does not include the portable contract that you approved earlier in the previous board meeting of about $400,000. So we're looking at a total cost of about $3.6 million. And we budgeted a little over $4 million. So I give great kudos to Desmond Wire and the constructability review when they go through our projects to help the district save money.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh wait, pardon me.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. I'm remembering, it's not in time. Trustee Singer.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Tarvin.
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Motion carries 4-0 with Trustee Westwell absent. P9, Educational Services Agreements with Ocean View School District of Orange County for Speech Language Pathology Services is in front of us tonight for action. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll call vote. Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Tarvin?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Trustee Westwell is absent. Motion carries 4-0. P10, Educational Services Independent Contractor Agreement between Ocean View School District of Orange County and Buck Institute for Education, DPL, done well. At Vista View Middle School is in front of us tonight for action. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We're going to go with Clayton-Tarvin on that one. That was a close tie, though. We'd have to check the camera. And do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Trustee Kinger?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton Tarpon?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I as well vote aye. That motion carries 4-0 with Trustee Westwell absent. We'll go to P11, Human Resources, caseload waivers for resource specialists is in front of us tonight for action. Is there a motion? I will move this item. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Well, seeing something like this always concerns me as a teacher. And as a person who has been a steward for a union for many years, when I see waivers and things like this, I know that not all teachers may be in agreement with wanting to do this. I believe it says 7, or am I reading that wrong? 7. How many do we have total?
There are currently 7.
So all 7 are in agreement that they want to do this?
Yes, they are. And we've been working with the association on this.
How many are we over in their caseloads?
They've gone over just anywhere from 1 to 4 in their caseload.
So 1 to 4 per 7 per each of the 7.
That's correct.
And this is in lieu of having to hire another person?
Well, it's once we found out that we were over the number, then we entered into discussions with the association with regards to how we can remedy this situation. I don't know if you recall, but I spoke to it in closed session a few meetings ago. And so we ended up doing a side letter, and we realized that we had to do more than that to pay for the $500 stipend. So the State Department requires these waivers, and they require that we work with the association and work with our administrators as well as our teachers, our RSP teachers, for them to accept the waiver or approve the waiver so that we can move forward and we can have it on file. So it's getting in compliance.
Okay. I'd like to caution everybody here at the dais about not speaking about what occurs in closed session, just to be careful. Okay, I understand now. Thank you for explaining it to me. What's it looking like for next year, though? Because I don't think this is something we should have ongoing.
No, so now that it's been brought to our attention, we're working closely with our RSP teachers as well as the administrators at the school site and the special education department to keep close track of the students that are being identified. The special education department is also looking at how do we provide services to students that may not have to be or have an IEP for services to remedy their educational deficiencies. So it's something that we're currently working with Melissa Hurd, our executive director, as we kind of move forward and continuing those conversations again with the RSP teachers and the principals.
Reality is some children need special education services, and if we end up having, I know it's always best to have kids fully mainstreamed and not have to have the IEP process or to be on 504s. I realize the least restrictive environment is always the best, but the reality is we do have a considerable special education population that need RSP services. And so therefore, if this continues on, what are we going to do? Do you have a plan or anything?
Well, if this continues, if this trend continues, then we would have to provide more staffing so that it is in line with the resource specialist caseload.
And so this is just retroactive for this particular year?
Yes, it goes this year, and then it provides us the opportunity or the ability to do it next year as well, once it's approved.
So to be able to do it next year?
Well, we wouldn't have to do the waivers for next year because they're done this year. But we are again working with the special ed department to put have the communication systems and structures in place so that we can address the needs of the students.
So, but this would come back again at another time when it may not necessarily be this dollar amount or this particular agreement.
Well, and we won't have to do that now that it's been identified, and as we continue to work towards resolving that issue.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Patricia? Trustee Singer? Tricia Singer, sorry. Aye. Okay. Trustee Clayton-Tarver?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I as well vote aye. And Trustee, motion carries 4-0. Trustee Westwell is absent. P12, Human Resources, Declaration of Need for Fully Qualified Educators. Is before us tonight for action. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Trustee Singer?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton-Tarver?
Aye.
Trustee Briscoe?
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Motion carries 4-0. Trustee Westwell absent. P13, Human Resources, Williams Settlement Legislation, third quarter report, 2017 to 2018 is before us tonight for information. I will make a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, it's for information. No motion. Thank you. Jeez. Roll right through it. Yeah. Okay. Any information? Okay. We will close that out. And that brings us to Q. Any other public communications to the Board of Trustees? Clerk Clayton-Tarver.
We don't have any.
Rolling right along. Future agenda items as requested by board members. Trustee Clayton-Tarver.
A cohort study for demographics
By school site.
by school site. Maybe get the old one out and check on that, or maybe we don't even need a study session. Maybe just an item and a little quick discussion.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that's done. Thank you. Any others? Okay. Board of Trustees Roundtable. Trustee Briscoe.
I have nothing more to contribute tonight.
Trustee Singer.
I don't.
Trustee Clayton-Tarver.
Just two things. One is that today was the last day of school for my students in ABC Unified School District, and they just were so happy to go on to 7th grade and middle school, and that brings me to next week in the Ocean View School District. It's the last week of school, and there's going to be promotions and wonderful things going on, and I just want to thank all of our employees for making that so special for our students, and I look forward to attending the promotional ceremonies at some of the middle schools, so thank you.
All right, thank you. And I, once again, would like to thank everyone for hanging in there, especially, well, I think it's all employees now. But thank you, nonetheless. You guys are troopers. And in the interest of time, I'm going to cut it short there because I know it's been late. We do need to return to closed session, and we will report out from there if any of you would like to stick around. From Building C, yes. If any of you would like to stick around. And we're going to go back into closed session now at 9:13.
I'm ending the broadcast. I will not be back for the closed session information. You'll have to get that directly from the district if you care to get that information.